What's going on, guys? Welcome back to part 4 of a series where we're going to be building a social media with React and Django. In the previous video, we built React private routes so that a user can't access the app unless they are authenticated. So in this video, we're going to be building the functionality to allow an account to follow and unfollow users, just like Instagram. But just before we get started, a lot of effort goes into this series, so if you could like and comment in the video and subscribe to the channel if you're not, it supports me to keep making these tutorials. So now let's get into it. So before we dive into any code, we need a user that we can follow. So I'm going to register a new user and call him Joe Doe, then fill out the rest of the details. And we got a successful registration. We'll log into our original account, so MattMakesCode 123, and then we can go to the URL here and type in the username we just created. So we got this @JoeDoe here. If we go into the admin console and we refresh, I'll log in again. You see we have a new user called Joe Doe, which we just registered. Then we can give them some extra data, like a bio, which I already created, saying, "Hi, I'm Joe, I'm new to Social Hub," and then a profile image, which I've downloaded already. So if we save that, go back to this profile and refresh, you see we got their new data. But one issue we've got is that they have this edit profile button, but we're logged in as MattMakesCode, okay? So what we need to do is head back into our code, go to our views.py file, and make some edits to our API here that gets user profile data. Because at the moment, this is calling that API when we go to this page. But we need to send some data saying, is this the page we're logged into? And at the moment, if we were here, it would be no. But if we were at MattMakesCode, it would be yes. And then if it is yes, it will give us this edit profile button. If it's no, it will give us the follow button or the unfollow button. So we'll just do that. We'll have to make some changes. So we have our serializer here. We're going to have to place this in an object, and then we can expand the get all the details out the object by doing this, so all the different keys, and then we can extend this object by adding our new parameters. So we're going to do is our profile, and then we can set this to request, sorry, bad spelling, .user.username is equal to user.username. So this is the user we're getting from the page we land on. So at the moment we're at MattMakesCode, and request.user.username is the username of the person we're logged into, which is also MattMakesCode. So this would return true, and if it returns true, we'll return the edit profile button, but if it returns false, we'll return the follow or unfollow button. And that leads us to the next thing we need to make. So we need to know if we are following the user or if we're not following the user. So we need to grab the user, which we're going to the profile to. So if we set following to false by default, and we say if request.user, so if our user is in the user's page we're at, if we're in their following, then following is true. So if we're in user.followers.all, so this is an array of all the user's followers, and if our account is in there, then set following to true. And then we can create another key, which is following, and we'll set that to following. And now when we go, we can close this and go into our front end and go into our routes and use profile. So now when we're fetching this data, we have two more states we can create. So state 1 is going to be is our profile. Set is our profile. By default, we'll do false. That won't matter because nothing will load until loading stopped. And then we'll do another one saying following and is following. Also just set it to false, and then just get rid of that. Set is our profile to data dot. We can just copy it from what we're returning. So we did like this, and then also set following to following. Oh, set. There you go, just like that. Data dot is following. Sorry, data dot following. There you go. So if we scroll down, we got this button here. We're gonna have to do an if statement. So if is our profile. Don't want that. It's annoying. There you go. So if it's our profile, then we want this edit button. However, if it's not, we want the follow button, and we'll make this a color scheme of blue. However, we need to do another statement that checks if we're following. If we are following, then we want to return unfollow, as we're already following them. But if we're not following them, we want to return follow. Okay. When we go back to our browser and refresh, you see we get edit profile here, and if we go to Django, we get follow instead. So I'll go back to ours. You can see we get a little blip there when we refresh, when it goes blue. So we need to add a loading. So we'll do loading. If it is loading, we'll just add something called a spacer, which is basically going to fill the gap here, but it's going to fill it with nothing. So it means the page won't jump around when it's loading. So if we refresh, you can see we don't get that blue anymore. So we go to Jodo, we've got this follow button. When we click it, nothing's going to happen because we actually haven't implemented any toggle following functionality. So if we go back to our code, we're going to have to create a new API that's going to allow us to follow and unfollow users. And we're going to do this in the form of a toggle. So if we're already following them, we'll unfollow them. But if we're not following them, then we'll follow them. We can do this in one API. So we're going to do an API view. We'll do post at permission classes, and then we'll give it a function name of toggle follow. It's going to take in a request. So we need to get the user of the user we're logged into. So yeah, I'll go through it. So we need to get the user we're logged into. We need to get the user we're going to follow. So at the moment we're logged into MattMakesCode, and the user we're trying to follow is Jodo. And if our user is in the user's followers, then we'll unfollow them, which means we'll just remove them from their followers array. However, if we aren't following them, then we'll follow them and we'll add our user to their array. Okay, so we'll just code this out. We have to check if our user exists, like always. So this is going to be request.user.username. and we'll call this my user, and then we'll do user to follow equals the request data username, as we're going to pass through a username in the data. So we'll do request.data, we'll do username, and we'll do users does not exist. So if they both exist and it doesn't throw that error, then we need to check if our user is in the user to follow followers, okay? .followers .all, and if they are, then we're going to do user to follow .followers .remove our user. Else, which do else. So if we're not in their follow array, then we want to follow them. So we're going to add to their follow array. And we also have to return a response. So we'll return response followed. We'll do false. And then return followed true, as we'll do now following is true, just to make it a bit more clear. The reason why we're going to return this is so that we can get it in our client side, in our React, and we can update it straight away without waiting for the return it to actually update it in our database, because that's going to take a while for us to actually update the user. But we can actually update it straight away in our React with just this. Okay, so we need to handle the error case just in case there is. So just put in a try except, like always, and then return response with an error. We'll just do error following user. Okay, so we need to create a URL for this. Do toggle follow, and then we need to import it and add it here. So that's our API created. Now if we just go to our front end and create a new API endpoint for our toggle follow, so we could just copy and paste a post, be a bit easier. Let's get rid of that. We just need username. Call this toggle follow. Don't want that. And then call this toggle follow. Okay, so that looks good to me. When we go to our user profile, we're going to go to our user details and we're going to create a new function called handle toggle follow. So we want to create a data for our toggle follow, make this asynchronous, just check weaving. Okay, so we're going to get the data from here. If we go to our views, you can see we return now following is false and no following is true. So if now following is true, then we need to add 1 to our follow account. Okay, but for the page we're on. However, if it's false, then we need to remove 1. Okay. We need to also make sure we're passing in the username we're going to be following. So this is the user profile that we're at. And then, like I said, we're going to check if we're now following them. So we can do if data.now following is true. then we're going to add 1 to the counter of their followers. So this will go to 1. So we'll set following count to the current following count, but add 1 to it. However, if it's not true, if we're not following them anymore, then we'll subtract 1. So we're not following them, this is wide 1, but if we unfollowed them, it will become 0 again. We also need to toggle this follow button, so it needs to become unfollow. So we'll set following to true, and then we'll set following to false if we're unfollowing them. Okay, so this should work if we press the button. So I'm just going to refresh. If I follow them, you can see followers, we've got 1 follower now. And if I go to MattMakesCode, which is the account we're logged into, you can see that we've got 1 following, which is this new Joe Doe account. And if I unfollow them, see that goes to 0. And if I go back to my account, you see that we're not following anyone anymore. So that's the end of this episode where we learn how to follow and unfollow users. In the next video, we're going to be building out the post model and the styling for the post, as well as the like functionality for a post where we can like and unlike posts for our account or other accounts. So you're going to want to stick around for that tutorial. Thanks.